Hey, this is Lloyd, and we are dressed up funny today. We're dressed in our medieval reenactment gear, and we're out in the woods. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you like the channel, be sure to subscribe. Share it with anyone you think that might like it, and if you don't like it, share it with your enemies, and I will punish them for free. So we're out in the woods today in our reenactment gear, having a little fire, and as you saw, it took a little bit longer than usual to light the fire using medieval methods. I cheated a little bit. I used char cloth. The funguses that traditionally are used for fire lighting grow very slowly and are fairly rare, so unless I'm teaching a class, I typically leave those alone, and I use char cloth, which is arguably a later technique. They may have used it in the medieval period, but we don't really know. And for tinder, I used dried up fern that I found on the way in, and I've never used fern before, so it was interesting to see how that worked. It eventually did work, but it was a bit damp. In this area, a lot of the ferns stay green. There's a species up here they call Christmas ferns, so they don't dry out like the normal ferns do. But I also used a bit of birch bark, and about 5 minutes or so I got it going. I used two different techniques too, and the first one didn't work. What I normally do is I'll put the char cloth on top of the piece of flint or the piece of chert, and then I'll strike the sparks with my striker, and usually one flies up and lands there within a few strikes. That went fairly easily. I decided to try a different one that I don't use very often, where you strike the sparks down into your charred material or your charred cloth. That took a little bit longer, but eventually it does work. So if you're doing this on your own, just do what works for you. So this video was specifically filmed to be shared on the Foresters pages, and if you don't know what the Foresters are, the medieval reenactment group that I belong to, we have a little subset of people that enjoy the outdoors, enjoy the camping and traveling overland, and we've created a group called the Foresters, based off of medieval foresters in England and of course they had medieval foresters in the continent as well. And they were like the forest rangers of the day who enforced forest law and tracked down poachers and outlaws that might be sheltering in the woods. And that's what we do. So as a result, we tend to dress in green, the same as they did. And the smoke from the fire is coming right into my face. So, that's what happens. That's what happens when you're in the outdoors. So eventually the fire's going to change a little bit and the smoke will drift off, and that'll be that. So a lot of people ask, what should I wear? What should I have for kit when I'm doing medieval reenactment in the outdoors? And the very first thing that you should consider, above all else, is a good pair of medieval footwear. Well, really, there's no such thing as a good pair of medieval footwear. They're all a compromise, and to modern sensibilities, they really are quite horrible. But once you get used to them, once you learn how to walk in the woods, you kind of test the ground in front of you before putting your weight, you get used to it. My advice is, don't cheap out. If you don't have the skills to make them, buy something that is decent quality, import something out of Europe or find a quality maker, and just wear it around the house. Put it on, step in the bathtub, fill it up with warm water, and wear them till they're dry. They'll conform to your feet. Above anything else, that's what you're going to have the most trouble with getting used to anyway, is medieval footwear. And when you're out here in the woods, your feet are going to be wet, your feet are going to be cold. So when I'm doing trips in medieval gear, I typically carry a pair of dry socks that say tucked in a pocket somewhere or in a bag, and I only wear them around camp. I make sure that they don't ever get wet, because there's nothing any better than when you get to camp taking off your wet footwear and putting on some nice warm dry socks. Next, you should have a medieval shirt of some kind that is made of wool. Wool really is the best outdoor fabric that money can buy, and again, this is an item that ideally you don't want to cheap out on. You want 100% wool, or a very minimum of 70% wool, and it's going to work really, really well. It's going to breathe even in warm conditions and in cold conditions. As long as you're moving around and working, it's going to work quite well. Another thing that you should consider is a wool hood. It's good to keep off the elements. It's really good at night when it gets a little bit chill, just to cover your head. Most of your heat loss is going to be through your head. That's not an issue so much in the summertime. Normally in the summertime I wear a lighter hood to keep the sun off. But there's no denying that it's a very, very practical piece of outdoor equipment. Also, you're going to want a belt of some kind, and on that you'll want a pouch to carry your fire lighting kit in, and maybe a spoon or a small bowl, maybe a cup. You might want to put that stuff in some kind of roll that you carry as well for camping. If you're just out on a day hike or whatever doing the medieval reenactment, you might not need so much of that, but a water costrol is also a good idea. It's basically like the leather version of an Nalgene bottle, and you can buy those, and they're fairly easy to make as well. It's a good idea to have a knife of some sort, a medieval knife that suits your time period, whether you're a Viking reenactor or later medieval. Most of your camp chores are going to be food preparation and so on and so forth. Using a knife for wood chores, that's a secondary concern really. It's mostly going to be for food prep. Most of your fire lighting and so on and so forth, you can just break up sticks. You really don't need to be cutting into them, unless it's less than perfect conditions and you have to cut the heart out of a dead dry log. And for that you probably want an axe. So those are the main things. If you've got a good pair of leather footwear, and you've got a good wool shirt and a decent hood, a belt and a pouch and a knife, you're off to the races for the most part. The rest of it can come later, and as you acquire more and more stuff, you'll discover what works and what does not, and pretty soon you'll have a box full of last year's good ideas as you upgrade and move forward. So if you have any questions, feel free to get hold of one of the people in the group that's done this a fair amount, and all of us will be very, very happy to assist you on your journey in outdoor medieval reenactment in the Foresters group. Have a good day.